It's that time of year again when cold, dry air from the northwest clashes with warm, moist air moving up from the south. And when the conditions are right and the battle lines are drawn, it can leave us all seeking shelter from the storm.
This is a Local 4 News special, Shelter from the Storm. Brought to you in part by Tyson's Home Farm Auto, always there for you. Here now is Chief Meteorologist Andy MCCRAY.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for this Local 4 special presentation, Shelter from the Storm. I'm Chief Meteorologist Andy MCCRAY. We have a great program for you tonight as we gear up for severe weather season in and around the Quad Cities. This year's season is off to a little bit of a slow start, but inevitably we always end up with damaging winds, tornadoes, hail, flash flooding at some point of the year. And tonight we'll make sure you're ready as we talk about when severe weather is most likely, the difference between watches and warnings, and take you inside the most sophisticated storm chasing vehicle in the Quad Cities, our Local 4 storm chaser Colby Martin's mobile weather lab. We have all that and a whole lot more coming up tonight. Let's start though by addressing a question a lot of people have now that we've finally made it past one of the longest, coldest, and snowiest winters ever in the Quad Cities. Some of you are wondering if that will have an impact on our severe weather season. The short answer, no. It could push back the onset a little bit, but overall it shouldn't make a big difference in the amount of severe weather we see. But there is something else at play that actually might cut down on severe weather outbreaks in the Midwest.
In terms of the overall pattern of weak El Nino conditions, that could perhaps suggest a tendency towards less severe weather this spring.
Even if we don't have as much severe weather as normal this year, we're guaranteed to have some. And when watches and warnings start getting issued, it's important to know the difference. This year we have a creative way for you to remember one from the other. Ashe Simpson is here to explain.
Well, that's right. It is always important to know the difference between a watch and a warning so you know when you need to take action and when you don't. First of all, a severe weather watch is a way of letting us know that the atmosphere favors severe weather conditions. It's possible, but it's not quite active. You just need to remain weather aware. So another way of putting that is, well, we have the ingredients. We have the ingredients that we need to make it. And a warning is, well, when it's happening. We have the cupcake. We have the severe weather happening. That's the severe weather warning for us. That means it's active, and that means you need to put your severe weather plan into action. Seek shelter. Make sure you tune in for information, and always remain alert whenever there is a severe weather warning.
Thanks, Ashe. And I'd like to spend a few moments now talking about when and why we interrupt regular programming when tornado or severe thunderstorm warnings are issued. I believe the most important thing we do here at Local 4 is keep you safe during severe weather. You rely on us for important, urgent, life-saving information. There are times when a crawl at the bottom of the screen can get the message out, but there are also times we need to be on TV immediately when the threat level rises to life-threatening conditions. Now remember, we cover about 24 counties in Illinois and Iowa, and there are times severe weather only threatens a portion of the viewing area, and sometimes that area might be outside of the metro Quad Cities. But we have a responsibility and a duty to provide safety info for viewers throughout the coverage area. So while a particular storm might not affect you on a given day, remember, we're looking out for viewers no matter where they live. And rest assured, on that day when life-threatening weather is approaching your place, we'll be there for you with live coverage on air and at ourquadcities.com. One other thing, some television stations subscribe to the first on, last off theory. They want to be on longer than the other TV stations in town just so they can say they were on the longest. At Local 4, we follow half of that motto. We go with first on, threat cleared. We will be the first on when severe weather warrants live coverage on television, but we won't stay on longer than everybody else in town just to say we were on for the longest amount of time. We'll get you back to the regular programming as soon as possible, and that happens as soon as that threat is cleared. Now, there are times when this all happens during primetime television, but tornadoes and severe thunderstorms are actually possible any time of the day. Meteorologist ZANE SATRE has more about that.
When it comes to severe weather, think of thunderstorms that can produce tornadoes or hail or damaging winds. It's important to remember these can happen at any time of day. However, there are certain times of day around the Quad Cities that severe weather happens more often. What you're seeing here is a chart showing tornado reports over many years, broken down by the hour of the day when they occur here around the Quad Cities. It's easy to see that the overnight hours, midnight, early morning, kind of mid-morning, are fairly quiet, but there are still some recorded instances of tornado reports during those times of day. But you can see that tornadic activity really ramps up during the late afternoon and early evening. Think around 4 o'clock to around 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening hours. This is usually when we kind of get that peak amount of heat built up in the atmosphere that can really drive those powerful thunderstorms. Of course, if I showed you this chart for hail, it would look pretty similar. Late afternoon and early evening is also a popular time for damaging winds, but those can actually pop up too fairly often during the late evening and overnight due to something we call the nocturnal low-level jet in meteorology that fires up late here in the Midwest. That's also when we pick up a lot of our heavy rain too as well. The bottom line though is that even though severe weather happens most often during the late afternoon and evening, it can happen at any time of day, so it's important to be ready any time of day or year.
Thank you, Zane, and we have plenty more coming up for you tonight. Next, we'll take you inside Local 4 storm chaser KHOLBY Martin's mobile weather lab. It is full of technology that helps us pinpoint the exact location of tornadoes and strong winds and more. Shelter from the Storm continues in a moment. Welcome back to Shelter from the Storm. Hopefully you've learned a lot already tonight, and we have plenty more coming up for the rest of the half hour. This segment, I want to focus on our Local 4 storm chaser, KHOLBY Martin, and his mobile weather lab. Some incredible equipment inside here. And I wanted to point out, when it comes to a storm chasing vehicle or a mobile weather lab like this, you don't see a lot of stuff on the outside of the car. The stuff that matters is always on the inside of the car when it comes to chasing severe weather. And KHOLBY Martin, our local expert on this, he'll be on board with us again this severe weather season, always delivering up-to-the-second information, video reports when needed. Thanks for joining us, KHOLBY.
Thanks for having me, Andy. This is definitely the best chase vehicle I've had in my career. This is about the fourth vehicle I've had in probably about 7 or 8 years now, but there's nothing that I don't love about this vehicle. It's a 2014 Ford Explorer Sport. Has plenty of power when I need it. Has the four-wheel drive option, which is great for going down muddy or gravel roads. But the first thing that I've got in here is a scanner, which is, for me, I love to have out there to be able to hear any damage reports or even just storm reports themselves. I mean, I'm hearing them firsthand as soon as they come through. And this is a Sony 4K camera. This is the AX53, and I've had this for about 3 years now, and shoots excellent footage. One thing that I've added this year is a ham radio, and that is so important to have when you're out there in the field for me to be able to communicate with other storm chasers and actually to be able to hear and communicate to see what they're seeing.
What do you use the iPad for mostly?
Yeah, the iPad when I'm chasing is strictly radar and mapping.
And you can even show us the road you were on, you know, less than 5 years ago when you had video of one of the tornadoes in Rock Island County.
Yeah, many people remember the Edgington or Taylor Ridge tornado that tracked right down 92 here, and it was a really good intercept for me actually. I've got the tornado footage here on the laptop, and this is right here, this route 92, like I said, that goes right through Taylor Ridge, is this tornado right here. It produced about half mile south of this road, and it paralleled this road all the way through town. I believe there's only 2 chasers that actually even saw this tornado. There was a lot of rain being wrapped around the storm, and you had to be literally at the right place at the right time to be able to see this tornado. When I'm out in the field on a storm chase, I'm able to transmit that video back to the news station. You guys are able to use that live in the air, which is huge because there's no other stations around here that have been able to do that.
All right, thanks again for joining us, KHOLBY. Thanks for the tour of this state-of-the-art chase vehicle. Just about a one-of-a-kind here with that equipment inside. Again, like I mentioned earlier, you don't see a lot on the outside of the car. It's what's inside that helps KHOLBY track down tornadoes, and that is exactly what he specializes in. He's seen about 100 tornadoes in his life. And rest assured, anytime severe weather threatens the Quad Cities area this season, we will have live updates as needed from KHOLBY Martin, our Local 4 storm chaser. Well, we have plenty more coming up on tonight's special presentation of Shelter from the Storm. If and when severe weather threatens your home, you'll want to have an emergency kit on hand. You can start working on that even as soon as tonight. More about that a little later on Shelter from the Storm. Welcome back to Shelter from the Storm. We've had dozens of tornadoes in the area in recent years, and the one that hit Muscatine a couple years ago, it was one of the worst. Local 4 meteorologist ASHE SIMPSON takes us back to that terrifying day.
We were very, very lucky it happened at night when there wasn't anybody here. If it had happened on a Sunday morning, I don't even like to think about that.
On March 6, 2017, an EF2 tornado ripped through the town of Muscatine, Iowa. What happened in an instant left behind damage that would last much longer than that.
Didn't seem to be anything reasonable that they were trying to describe to me.
Wesley United Methodist Church sustained some of the worst damage of the night. The sanctuary was torn apart, including Sally Potter's favorite part, the church's historic organ.
Where there had been a magnificent instrument, there was a pile of rubble that was pretty much unrecognizable.
Oh, you wonder, can we even rebuild it? Is it even salvageable?
The church has since renovated the building and have modernized many of its features, finding light in the darkness.
It was very humbling. We had a very good outpouring of people from the community up and down the street here. They came in, they wanted to volunteer to help clean up.
And through all of it, there was one part of the church that was never touched.
What really gave us the most hope was the cross that's behind me back here was still hanging.
For Wesley United, the threat of storms was always real, but this particular storm became that reality.
Storms are unreasonable. You can't plan on them acting in a reasonable way and can do an immense amount of damage in just no time at all.
We will be alert and be aware of any potential storms. We'll take necessary steps so that people are not put in harm's way.
A tornado creating a renewed sense of community and a new perspective.
I'm glad we got to work with all the people and we got to do the things that we did. I don't want to do it again.
ASHE SIMPSON, Local 4 News.
Thanks, Ash. And anytime we have a tornado warning in the Quad Cities, our outdoor storm sirens will be activated. But did you know that's not the only time they go off? Zane's back and he puts Quad City storm sirens to the test.
Warning sirens. For many of us, when you hear warning sirens, that's the first indication that the weather outside is really starting to get nasty. It's one thing to watch TV and see the brightly colored radar images and the warnings on the screen, but it's not quite the same as hearing that ominous wailing sound of the sirens down your street. Now, for many of us, we hear sirens and we think tornado, but that's not always the case. For example, here in the Quad Cities, there's actually more than just tornadoes that can trigger sirens to be blown. First of all, of course, is tornadoes, like everybody thinks, but also straight line winds. Those can be just as strong as weak tornadoes, like an EF0 or EF1. They can cause just as much damage, and they can cause damage over a much larger area. So actually here in the Quad City Metro, sirens will be blown for warnings that indicate winds possibly over 70 miles per hour. Also hail in excess of golf ball size or more. Golf ball size is about 1.75, an inch and 3/4 in diameter. Hail, for perspective, kind of your basic severe thunderstorm warning is for either 60-mile-an-hour winds or also hail of about quarter size. That's about 1 inch. Now, if you live outside of the metro area, your local sirens might not have the same criteria. If you're not sure, you should check with your city or your county emergency management to know what exactly it means for you when your sirens go off. Now, the other important thing to remember is that you can't just rely on sirens alone to warn you of severe weather. These are only meant to warn people who are outside, not inside a house or any other kind of building. Of course, if you're out in the country, you might not be able to hear the nearest town sirens even if you are outside, so you need to have a TV, smartphone, weather radio, whatever it is, multiple ways to get information during severe weather situation, because there will be severe weather as we head further into this spring season.
Thanks, Zane. Being prepared before severe weather hits, that can mean the difference between life and death. Do you have an emergency safety kit at home? We'll talk about what should be in that kit and why it can be a real life saver next on Shelter from the Storm. Welcome back to tonight's special presentation of Shelter from the Storm. We've been talking a lot about severe weather, and now is the time to really start thinking ahead and preparing for severe weather. So we're teaming up with our friends from Tyson's here. This is Jill, and she's going to talk about some of the stuff that you can get right here in the store, and you can get it now before the severe weather really starts to ramp up later in the season.
Absolutely. So welcome to Tyson's, and we will go through the assortment that we carry for you. So I'm going to come over to this side first. We have radios as well as battery-powered flashlights for you, so when that power does go out, we can accommodate your needs.
I see you have small flashlights, big flashlights, any flashlight you can think of, and the batteries to go with it if they're needed.
Absolutely.
Right here.
We can cover any needs you have for that.
And this thing, I wanted to point this out too. This is also very important. It's a NOAA weather radio. You know, we like for people to get a lot of their updates from Local 4 and Fox 18 and ourquadcities.com, but NOAA weather radios obviously also come in handy, and those are available here at the store too.
Absolutely, yes. So if that power does go out, we also have generators. So depending on what your need would be, so we do have generators of a size that would accommodate your home, but if you also have a farm or a larger business, we also have sizes that can accommodate.
So you can see you have the big generators too, and this is important because every once in a while we'll get a severe thunderstorm, something around here with strong winds, and the power might be out for a few days.
Yes.
So a lot of people, then a lot of the times, if that's happened in my neighborhood, you can hear the people who have the generators going, and usually you can see maybe a few extra people hanging out around the house that day.
Yes, they do, absolutely.
So we've got generators, plenty of those to choose from.
Yes, another thing that is key, so we have the severe weather that can be the high winds, but you can also have some of the excess water, so it can lead to flooding. So we also have a large variety of sump pumps, and this is something that you use in your home all the time.
A lot of sump pumps in basements around the Quad Cities. Now's the time to check it, make sure it's working. If it's not, get a new one now.
Absolutely, because unfortunately, a lot of times what we will see is customers coming in that didn't realize there would have been an issue with their sump pump. So they're coming in, unfortunately, they're experiencing flooding already. Yeah. So, but we're happy to help you with that. We will absolutely be in that department to answer any questions, find out what you need for your size of home, whatever it may be.
And you feel terrible for people when the sump pump does go out. If you do find yourself in that situation, you might end up needing one of the bigger pumps there if you have a bunch of water in the basement.
So we also carry transfer pumps as well as any hosing needs. So the hosing would be here, large transfer pump over here. If you are in that situation where you have, unfortunately, 2 or 3 feet of water in your basement, we can help you get through that stressful time.
And if it's a little bit of water, you know, maybe a shop vac can do the trick. You've got plenty of those to choose from also.
So we carry a wide variety of products that you could use for cleanup. So it would be a shop vac. We also carry bleach and the brooms and the different things that you need to unfortunately get rid of all that mess in your home.
And tonight, a lot of our focus during the program tonight has been talking about severe weather and tornadoes and winds and that kind of damage. If you end up with some trees down or whatever, pays to have a chainsaw here. This is a lot bigger than the one we have at home.
Yes, so we actually have a full steel shop. That's what you would actually see behind us. So we carry anything from a very small chainsaw to this would be an extremely large one. So if you have some larger trees that have gone down, you're going to need something a little bit bigger. But we have a full lineup that you could
and some of the crews who go around, you know, cleaning up a lot of the big limbs, they're probably working with something similar to this, I imagine.
Absolutely. So we also have all the protective gear. So when you're using power equipment or even just some of those flooding waters that carry a lot of debris and bacteria, I mean, we have rubber boots, we have rain suits, we have waders, we have all that type of thing. So
this is great stuff here. The store is big too. There's a lot of different sections where I think you're going to find some stuff that could be useful. Here's a tarp over here. I'm not sure if you mentioned that yet, but sometimes we'll get roof damage. From whether it's from hail or from strong winds. So if you end up with something, and a lot of the times when that happens, it might be kind of widespread. So the roofing companies, they might not be able to get there right away. That's when it would pay to have a big tarp like this.
So we have a wide variety as far as sizing. So it could be something very small if you have a small hole, or if you have to cover a whole roof, we actually carry that large of a size as well.
You have that stuff too.
We do.
So this time of year, one thing else I noticed when I was in the store today, walking around for a little while, I think I had about a dozen people ask me if I wanted help. So that's the kind of service people would expect here. It was nice. It felt good.
It does. We strive to do more. So we are continually trying to make sure that we can fulfill any customer needs as well as questions. So severe weather can bring a lot of stress on our customers. So we are here to ensure that when you come in and need some of these things simply because you're going through an unfortunate event, we can meet those needs for you.
You are right about that. It can be a very highly stressful time. So I want to say thank you very much for getting all of this stuff ready. Hopefully, you know, it's one of those things you hope people don't have to deal with it, but every year in the Quad Cities here, we get some kind of severe weather. So we appreciate your time today. And there's more coming up tonight on our special presentation of Shelter from the Storm. Finally tonight, we thought we'd do our best to dispel a few weather myths here around the Quad Cities. Listen to people talk about the weather long enough, and eventually you'll hear some stuff that's just not quite right. So we thought we'd head out and ask a few of these questions ourselves, starting with, do tornadoes cross the river?
I'm going to say yes.
It can definitely cross the river, and the river does not protect us.
I don't believe so, but I'm not really sure.
I would say it
does protect us from tornadoes, and they can't cross the river?
Yes, a tornado can cross the river, although it's legend that living in the Quad Cities, we're in a valley, so tornadoes don't touch down, but that's a legend and not actual factual.
That's actually not too bad. A lot of right answers there. What about severe weather in the winter? Is that possible in the Quad Cities?
I think they can happen practically any time.
It's happened in December.
I believe there was a tornado in December when we had warm weather in Illinois.
And our last question of the night, do city buildings protect us from tornadoes?
I don't really know, but I would guess that it would go through the buildings if it was able to, but I don't think the buildings would stop it.
It can go right through. I don't think the buildings have much to do with the tornado.
No, definitely go through the city.
I would say that a tornado will go wherever it wants to go, and buildings have no effect.
I believe a tornado could go anywhere, but often rural areas seem to be targets because, I don't know, I'm thinking of buildings and how they trapped wind, so I'm not sure.
So quick answers, tornadoes do cross the river. They can happen any time of year, and they can go right through a city. Take this tornado path, for example, and note the date. Back in 2016, on October 6th, an EF1 tornado with 100-mile-per-hour winds went right through Davenport and Bettendorf. That's right, it was outside of our most active severe weather season. It went right through the Quad Cities, and if you look closely, before it lifted, it did indeed cross right over the Mississippi River into Illinois. From all of us here at Local 4, thank you for joining us for this special program. And remember, as severe weather moves in this season, you can rest assured we'll be here for you 24/7. That includes on television, at ourquadcities.com, and on the Our Quad Cities app. Thanks again for watching, and have a great night.
This has been the Local 4 News Special, Shelter from the Storm, brought to you in part by Tyson's Home Farm Auto, always there for you. If you missed any of this program, you can rewatch it on ourquadcities.com.